Hey guys, Dawn from the Geek Duo here, and today I'll be bringing you my reaction to Percy Jackson Season 2, Episode 4, titled Clarisse Blows Up Everything. Quests collide as our crew voyages into the perilous sea of monsters. So, as we saw in the last episode, Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson were able to escape from the Princess Andromeda and Luke's forces after Tyson tricked the Laestrygonians into letting him build a bomb. And Clarisse was able to win over the dead soldiers that her father conscripted to serve her, which I didn't realize when watching the episode was probably the boon that she got for winning the chariot race. I as soon as Percy and Annabeth didn't win, that part just immediately left my mind. But yeah, so that's probably why he helped her out like that. But and one of the soldiers told her that the um coordinates that she gave them would lead them to New Jersey, not to not to the Sea of Monsters. And she realized that hey, Percy was telling the truth when he said that the dream came to him, not to Tantalus. So yeah, she's now off looking for him. Percy and that are off looking for the sea, and yeah, I do wonder how much of this is going to be from the book because, as I've been saying, they take different steps to get to the same endpoint. I know people who are annoyed with that. Like, what's the point of making these changes if it's just going to be the same in the end? There are people who are like, I like the changes because it keeps it fresh for the people who know the story while also telling the same story. And I'm more in the latter part. There are some changes I'm not 100% on, but yeah, I'm interested to see how much from this two chapters, because this is going to be chapters 10 and 11. um Considering the entire title of chapter 10 is just incorrect now, since it's not just dead Confederates. um but yeah, there is one creature that I'm hoping does show up, and we'll just have to wait and see. So let's get this started in three, two, one, go. Okay, that time the timer started at the same time the video started, yet it didn't show up for a little bit. Also, people are having issues with the way they say Polyphemus, because a lot of people say that, oh, my history teacher was always, it's Polyphemus. You get marked down if you say Polyphemus and that. So they're bristling up against that. And like, I've always said Polyphemus. I still want to know how Mitch died, because these are all soldiers who died in their respective wars. So how did Mitch die in the streaming wars? Also, I didn't notice, but one of Ellie's crew is Chris R from season one, the one that I thought was Chris Rodriguez, and then got um moved off of that role into a lesser one. I don't know why, but he is still in the show, just in a different role. Or maybe there's just a second Chris R who happens to be on Ellie's team. Hmm. Okay, this is a little different from a camouflage tent, but seems they are somewhat in the same track. Guessing that's either yours or you made that. Something that's probably not going to be showcased. It is showcased. Luke doesn't have his scar here. We never really got to see. uh, there it is. I had heard about that from people who were on the press junket. Our Monster Donuts is now a cereal brand, not an actual donut store. And they name dropped it. Cool. Mm. And here's our first look at Thalia. Grover. Hmm. We never actually really saw any of it. Like, she spoke about their hideout in Chesapeake Bay when they were there, but we never saw any of the Luke and little Annabeth stuff, except for when they first met her. Hmm. Something that really hasn't been said in the show yet, but Tyson is just a child by Cyclops standards. If you try to change a prophecy, you cause it to happen. That's not quite what the target was. I also apparently missed. They're calling that the Ironclad in this, not the CSS Birmingham. Guess it makes sense considering it's not a um American naval thing. How'd you even find them? Are we gonna? Hmm? Yeah, you'd expect an argument to. I challenge you to one-on-one combat. Hmm. uh, Percy, you got your ass handed to you last episode while Annabeth was fighting on your side. Like, yes, I know Ali is a graduate, but and also has real-world experience. Um, well, now they're needed. What weapon does Mitch even have? Hmm, that's a little devious. They didn't have the Hydra. That little thing on Monster Donuts is all we're going to get on it. Because that's what she blew up in the book. Between a rock and a hard place. There is also the other entrance, but it will always appear right in front of you. With all but six of his. If they went. But it is a problem for a child of Aries. Their leaders, they try not to lose their men. They try to lose the other people's men. That is a big thing with Clarisse's character, and we didn't actually get it shown at the start of um the book, well, the start of the season, when Percy tells her, hey, there are wounded that needs to be looked after, and she immediately drops her anger towards him to look after her troops. Also, the whole thing of Monster Donuts in the books was that it would it was tied to a Hydra, where if you cut off a Hydra's head, a new chain location of Monster Donuts would um spawn. They're like a breeding ground nest for monsters. So every time you cut it off, you'd create a new store where more monsters could come from. And they mentioned hippocampi. Huh. I think I may know what she was talking about with Luke's history of the camp. That'll find its way back to her. Hmm. Wasn't expecting it that quickly. Also, why was it glowing? Hmm. That is a thing from the book. It's actually described that he can see the um lines on the sea pretty much like it's glowing. Hmm. I don't actually know what the coordinate lines are called because my brain immediately tried to say ley lines, but I know that's not it. That's more of a magic. Hmm. There is some depth to what he just said there, but ooh, an owl always means something interesting when tied with the wisdom's daughter. Ooh, is this gonna be when she gets her hat? Because we never saw that. Because I just noticed she's wearing a New York Yankees um jumper. Hey, Rainbow! I like the little sheen it made. Rainbow is the name Tyson gave to the hippocampus that he rode from camp to the Princess Andromeda. Hmm. So they've given her her electric spear. They took the electricity away from Clarisse's spear, though. That is a change up from the books. Hmm. Putting this onto. This is actually the inverse of what happened in the book. That's fair. That was a very nice thing. It's completely new as well. Um, you won't make it. Maybe tell them, because isn't that how Odysseus, in the actual Odyssey, made it through? Like he told his men that they wouldn't make it. Why didn't you bring Chris? So it does seem we're not getting the scene between Clarisse and Ares on the ship. But Clarisse did go home. I didn't think she was a year rounder. They're gonna get interrupted before the final line again, aren't they? And fly home alone. That is information we didn't have until the end of the book. That whole fail without friends to fly home alone. Hmm. If you're not friends, then then you don't have to worry about him. That is the whole reason she didn't choose anyone to go with her in the book, is because she's like, if I have friends that go with me, I'm gonna be flying home alone. You had a couple tears in her eyes there. I don't actually remember if the entrance of the Sea of Monsters was in Clarisse blows up everything, or if that's in chapter 12. Oh, they chose Mitch. He's figured it out. She's a lot more crab-like than I was picturing. It's doing absolutely nothing. You've got no one at the wheel now. It's just got to get sucked in. And the two that fall off the roof. I remember that from the trailer. Still can't tell if that blue light is him or if that's Charybdis. And by doing this, you end up losing more men than if you'd have just let the six. Ooh, that's an issue. Oh, there goes Clarisse. I think that was Annabeth who just got blown away. Tyson was in the boiler room when it exploded. Okay, is that still on? Yep. And that's how that episode ends. Okay. There was a lot more in that than I was expecting. But also, it didn't feel like there was a lot. Okay, yeah, no, Entrance of the Sea of Monsters must have been in 11. Because chapter 12 is what the next episode is going to be about. Let's see. Excuse me, 148. Um, well, I just happened to open up to um, the scene of Ares and Clarisse on the boat that I was talking about. Um, so Percy's just wandering along the decks of the Birmingham, and he comes across. He feels a presence that's familiar, one that fills him with rage, and he immediately recognizes it as Ares. And so he sneaks along to and sees that Clarisse is standing in front of her father. And, well, her father's not actually there, he's more of a projection, but his power is still there, and he is berating her for letting Percy go with them. Like, for rescuing him and everything. And it's like, I don't want excuses. You're pathetic. I should have let one of my sons take the quest. She's like, I'll succeed. I'll make you proud. You better. You asked me for this quest. If you let that Slimeball Jackson steal it from you. But the Oracle said, I don't care what the Oracle said. You will succeed. And if you don't, he raised his fist, and it's the only time Percy had ever seen Clarisse flinch. And he's like, do we understand each other? And that's all that scene is. And that is a scene that relates Percy to Clarisse because of everything that he went through with Gabe. Having the shit house father is he's able to see just what Clarisse is like when it comes to her dad. And that was replaced with the thing of them talking about Percy's last quest, getting the full thing about the prophecy and everything, and Percy just relating to her with that. Let's see. Trying to see. Um, they do mention the clashing rocks in the book because that's what Jason used apparently, which probably would have been raised had they not killed the Argonaut. um, but Clarice is like, um, I can't blow apart the rocks with my cannons. I can take out Charybdis. Um, Percy knew who Charybdis was and suggests Scylla. Um, and it's like, what about Scylla? She lives in a cave up in the cliffs. Get too close, her heads will come down and start plucking sailors off the ship. It's like, choose Scylla. Everyone gets below deck. If she doesn't get her easy meat, then she'll probably just take the whole ship. And she's too high for the cannons. But we can aim for Charybdis. So it is pretty much again the same, but there are some changes. Um, there was a setup earlier in this episode of the engines having issues, and that's also in this. It's like we need a backup plan. This isn't going to work. The engines aren't good. Um, they suggest using the winds as well to escape the whirlpool. What about controlling the waters? You have Sun and Sun. You've done it before. Um, Notably in the book, Percy could not control the waters here. Um, they were too chaotic, too monstrous to be fully under Poseidon's control, and so they weren't under Percy's control. I didn't really see how well he was controlling it, whether it's the same or if he was able to influence a little bit. Um, Interestingly, in the book, they say the boiler's overheating, she's gonna blow. Um, the sailors get vaporized from the heat as soon as they get near it. So Tyson says he'll go fix it because he's immune to fire. Um, but so it was already on fire when he went down there. Not it started exploding by trying to put more juice in to escape Charybdis. Um, hmm. Let's see. Yeah, Percy was able to control it enough that the ship didn't capsize, but he wasn't able to control the currents. And then go, they pull away from Charybdis, and that's when people start getting nabbed by Scylla, including Percy. She grabs his backpack and he cuts the strap to free himself. Um, but then they escape in lifeboats. Um, Clarisse and some of the sailors go in one, but that fills up. So, um, Percy says go to the other one to Annabeth, and I'll get Tyson. Um, it's actually when Percy is in the air being taken by Scylla that the ship explodes with Tyson inside and several of the sailors still on board. Um, oh, he doesn't cut the straps. He actually stabs Scylla. And as he's falling, the ship explodes, and lifeboats manage to get away. Um, and then they see that he sees that the thermos was opened, and the wind blasts the lifeboats in every direction away from the explosion. But he's just still falling to the sea, and that's how it ends. So it is different. They don't get sucked up into the hurricane created by the winds. The ship does blow to pieces and everything. Um, what's interesting is going the route of Scylla, losing the three men, the captain realizing what's happening, turning to Clarisse with a look of betrayal, and then steering towards Charybdis, which then caused her to lose more people, all the ones falling overboard into Scylla's Charybdis's whirlpool and everything, all the people that were on the ship when it exploded because of using the extra power for the boilers and everything. That was possibly the worst choice she could have made. Yes, it would have been hard to live with herself, especially after the look that the captain gave her. But yeah, her actions in that spur of the moment led to all of them dying. I do realize that I've spoiled some things by mentioning how we don't learn about the prophecy till the end of the book, but come on. Do you really think Clarisse died? She was sucked off in the same way that Annabeth was. Trying to see. Chapter 4, 38. Um, see. Um, so I want to go back to the Culker's Bulls in the book, where Annabeth, Percy, and Tyson run up the hill as Clarisse and her border patrol are trying to engage the Bulls. Um, they're Percy and that are distracting one of the Bulls. Clarisse and that are fighting the other. The second Bull decides to turn away from from Annabeth, and um, try and charge at Clarisse while she's focused on the other one. So Percy's like, he yells, "Look out!" But distracts her from the first Bull, which crashes into her, sends her flying. Um, he grabs Clarisse by the armor and pulls her out of the way of the charging Bull, and they felt the heat of the fire inside burning them, and she's not happy that he saved her and that he distracted her to get her hit in the first place. Um, but they fight. Let's see, get to the end of it. Um, yeah. When the bulls are done, Clarisse pulls off her helmet, marches towards Percy. It's like, you ruin everything. I had it under control. It's like, don't you ever try saving me again. So Annabeth says, Clarisse, you've got wounded campers. And that sobered her up. Even Clarisse cared about the soldiers under her command. I'll be back, she drew out, then trudged off to assess the damage. That is very different from the way they portrayed um Children of Ares in that um conversation about acceptable sacrifices and all of that. The whole it should be easy for a child of Ares. So that's interesting. Trying to think, we never really got to. Yes, that's what I was going to talk about. The whole Cyclops lair. Um, we never really got to see any of Luke, Thalia, and Annabeth traveling. We only heard little stories, like snippets of stories, and the Cyclops lair was towards the end of their travels to camp, not when they decided to go to camp, because they'd been traveling with Grover for a while, heading to camp across country, and Grover says, I think it's actually in the light. No, it's in this one. Explains why Annabeth hates Cyclopses, because she hates them a lot more than she does in here. Here she's weary of them, but it's never really been a big sticking factor. But in the book, Grover's like, I took a wrong turn. We traveling with two teens and a young child. We were already moving slower than expected. I was told to only bring Thalia, but I couldn't leave the others behind. I took us on a wrong turn, and we wound up in a Cyclops lair. And he used his voice mimicry to separate us. It was a maze of corridors in there, and one by one, he just picked them off. He took Grover, he took Luke, he took Thalia. It was left to 7-year-old Annabeth just in this dangerous place that she had no way of navigating. She hears Thalia's voice, runs to go to her, and is met face to face with a grinning Cyclops. And that is the experience of the Cyclops in the book. Here, Annabeth wandered off on her own for a reason I don't know. It could be because of the owl. She was seemingly gone for hours, considering it was night when she left and was day when she was grabbed. There was the there was the bit of Cyclops voice mimicry that I didn't pick up on immediately while watching, but as I'm talking through it, I realized that when she was hearing Luke and Thalia's voice in the woods, that was the Cyclopses. But yeah, it was Annabeth who got captured, Annabeth who led them to the Cyclops lair and slowed them down and had Thalia agree to join camp. One thing I won't touch on is what I believe Thalia's comment about Luke having experience with camp before. I'm not going to touch on that until I get confirmation about what that is about, which won't happen for a while. Because that could very well be setting up something for book 5. But yeah. But that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk to you about. I'm just scrolling through the timeline to see if there's anything else. Um, we got confirmation as to who it was Thalia was squaring up against in the trailer. It was Cyclopses. That was something I was never gonna be able to pick up. One, because at that point I didn't know who was playing Thalia, so I didn't recognize her. And two, there was only ever one Cyclops in the book, and well, we also never saw her squaring up against them. We never really saw her squaring up against anyone except for um hearing about it, her final stand. Little sad they didn't do the Hydra because there's actually a funny scene in the book where they stumble. Annabeth takes them to one of their old hideouts, and she and Percy want to have a talk. So he sends Tyson off to get supplies, and like, what do you want me to find? It's like, I don't know, donuts. And so they're like, that's an impossible thing. He'll come back after not being able to find it in a little bit, and then so they have their chat. And then Tyson comes back with a box of donuts. And he's like, there's a donut store just over there. And they go over, see it's a Monster Donuts chain. Get the whole it's a breeding ground for monsters and everything. And then they actually see a Hydra skulking in the ground nearby. Um, they try to engage it, can't really do much. Percy instinctively cuts off one of its heads, and Annabeth is like, "You've just opened another Monster Donuts somewhere." Um, and yeah, then Clarisse comes in and blows up the Hydra because they didn't really have anything to deal with it. Like they had no way to destroy the necks without more coming, so and that's how they get on the ship in the book. But having Clarisse come in, blow up their boat, and be like, "Tell me where the sea is," but also, "I'm gonna strand you here afterwards. You can find your own way back to wherever you go, and it won't be to camp." Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna end this one here. I'll catch you in the next one.